There is a broad consensus regarding the GST design. There is a general consensus that there should be a common definition throughout the country. Procedures should be similar procedures everywhere.
You don't have to have this optimal structure to have a GST. So hopefully we will come close to this best structure, what I call the best structure, but no country is at the best structure.
Hello and welcome to We Mean Business. The GST Empowered Committee meetings this week yielded several positives, among them a resolution on the issue of CST compensation, one of the key breakthroughs in the negotiations. And while the centre and states are still debating the nitty-gritties in the design of the goods and services tax, a broad consensus seems to have been arrived at, paving really the way for a more diluted version of the GST to be rolled out. But what could be the other roadblocks really before this far-reaching reform becomes a reality? That's our debate tonight in We Mean Business. And on the show with me, Bipin Sapra, the tax partner at Ernst & Young, Mr. S.K. Goel, former chairman of the CBEC, N.K. Venu, managing editor of the Financial Express, and Narendra Taneja, energy expert from Upstream, all of them joining in from New Delhi. But before we begin our debate, listen in to Sushil Kumar Modi, the Finance Minister of Bihar and the chairperson of the Empowered Committee on GST.
There is a broad consensus regarding the GST design, but everything requires more details. There is a general consensus that there should be a common definition throughout the country. Procedures should be similar procedures everywhere. But what will the procedure, what will the definition, it has to be worked out. But the general design of GST, there is a broad consensus among the Empowered Committee, but there are some issues like RNR, like dual control, like exemption, like threshold limits. For all these issues, we have formed 3 subcommittees which will give its report in the next 3 months.
So what about the states which do not want to be part of the GST system?
The committee has recommended that there should be an option. So those states who don't want to join GST, so there should be a provision in the constitution bill. So it has to be worked out, but in general there is a consensus that there can be such provision in the bill.
And sir, what should be the GST rate like? Any idea about?
No, because we have formed a committee which will go into the details of the revenue neutral rate. What shall be the rate? Already there is a presentation today by NIPF. But for the further details, a subcommittee has been formed.
And before we begin our debate, some positive data points on the economy today. The April to December fiscal deficit numbers have come in at 78.8% of the FY13 target. This is, remember, much better than the 92% figure last year, suggesting that the finance minister could well stay within his 5.3% target, as he has been insisting for all of this while. Sapna Das gets us more perspective.
Well, yes, good news for the government in terms of the fiscal crunching that the government is trying to do right now, complete control over the expenditure numbers, which is what is reflected in the usage of the quantum of the fiscal deficit amount of 5.17 lakh crores that have been set on the budget. It clearly indicates a fiscal deficit usage of less than 80% at the end of December, clearly indicates that the government will remain within the 5.3% target that they have set out, if not lower than 5.3%, because the actual budget estimate was 5.1% and Mr. Damram has said 5.3. It could be actually even lower than that. The only worry here are the tax revenues, because they are showing a dip, especially if you look on the non-tax revenue side. And the divestment secretary did indicate that they will not be able to meet the 30,000 crore divestment target. It's going to be around in the range of around 27,000 crores at best. So that is something the government will have to factor in. But this entire exercise is being achieved by a dramatic and drastic cut on the expenditure numbers. The flip side of the coin over here would be the fact that the government is sitting on a neat cash balance of over 1 lakh crores and they are not spending. So there could be a situation in the liquidity market where the liquidity becomes slightly tight. But the Reserve Bank of India is taking care of that by doing some kind of a cut on the CRR. And this is how the government is trying to put its maths together and manage the fiscal deficit target, be within target, so that there is no downgrade from the rating agency side. Also, 5.3 is what it's going to be for the current financial and 4.8 for next year.
All right, with that, let's throw it open then to our panel. And I want to begin with Mr. S.K. Goel, who was at the helm of the CBEC just a few months ago. Sir, I just want to get an understanding of how you are really looking at these negotiations. On one hand, you have positive news on the CST stalemate really ending. On the other hand, you have dilution of some of the provisions. How do you look at all of this?
No doubt there is some progress, as the chairman of the Empowered Committee we were just listening to. But of course, as you also mentioned, it is diluted GST. It is not the ideal GST which was envisaged when initially GST was thought of. Ideally, it should be a very comprehensive GST covering all the states, covering all the commodities, and with the minimum of exemptions and with the minimum of variation. Now we are having dilution in all the spheres. We are allowing some that states have the option to opt out. They did not join the GST as it is implemented, and also the states have been given the option as per the newspaper reports that they will have the floor rates, and then the states will have the option of having a band in which they can operate, which means they can be plus or minus of the floor rate. So again, it depends what is the band option given. Ideally it should be minimum, because an ideal GST which will create a common market and which will help the business to flourish irrespective of extraneous consideration, and which will help our exports to grow, it is required that there should be minimum variation in rates. All the states should participate. There should be minimum exemptions. So these things are yet to be worked out. But the good thing is that there is a forward movement. States have agreed that GST is a good thing. They are going to implement it, and the details are being worked out by the 3 subcommittees.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app, fully optimized for retina display, full screen view, faster response time, and Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.